Admiral Vexithera pressed her scaled hand against the cold metal wall of her ship's bridge. The lights flickered above her head, casting strange shadows across the room. Her yellow eyes stared out at the darkness of space, watching the broken pieces of her once great fleet drift like dead leaves in the void. The Zaphirian Confederation had ruled this part of the galaxy for over 1,000 years. Their ships were the finest in known space, powered by living computers that could think and adapt. Their weapons could tear holes in reality itself. Their warriors were trained from birth to fight with honor and skill. None of it had mattered against the Void Reapers. Vexithara's long tail swept the floor behind her as she walked to her command chair. Around her, the bridge crew worked quietly at their stations. Many bore fresh bandages from the last battle. The air smelled of burned circuits and fear. "Status report," she said, her voice carrying the authority of someone who had commanded fleets for 50 years. Commander Thais, her second-in-command, looked up from his station. His green scales had turned pale with worry. "Admiral, we have lost 60% of our ships. The survivors are damaged beyond our ability to repair them. Our bioneural networks are failing across the fleet." Vexithara closed her eyes. The bioneural networks were the heart of their technology. Living computers that grew like plants, connecting every ship in the fleet with thoughts faster than light. The Reapers had poisoned them with some kind of machine virus. Now their ships could barely talk to each other. "What about our weapons?" she asked. "The quantum disruption cannons are offline. The reality shapers are destroyed. We have basic energy weapons only, and those are running low on power." The Admiral felt her heart sink. She had two hearts like all Zaphirians, and both felt heavy with the weight of failure. Her people were depending on her to stop the Reapers before they reached the home worlds. Now she would have to send word that the Great Fleet was broken. The Void Reapers were unlike any enemy the galaxy had ever seen. They were machines but not simple robots. They were ancient beyond measure, older than most star systems. They moved through space in great geometric shapes that hurt to look at directly. Everything they touched turned to cold metal and silence. They had appeared at the edge of Zaphirian space 6 months ago. The first worlds to face them simply stopped existing, not destroyed, erased as if they had never been there at all. The Reapers took the matter and energy of entire planets and turned them into more of themselves. The Confederation had sent their best fleet to stop them. Admiral Vexithera had led 300 of their finest ships into battle, confident that Zaphirian military might would prevail. They had fought the Reapers among the gas giants of the Kepler system, and the battle had been a disaster. The Reapers learned from every attack. When the Zaphirians fired their quantum cannons, the enemy adapted and became immune. When they used reality-shaping weapons, the Reapers copied the technology and turned it against them. Every tactic, every strategy, every weapon, the machines absorbed it all and became stronger. Now Vexithara sat in the ruins of her command, trying to think of what to tell her people. How do you explain that the greatest military force in the galaxy had been beaten by machines that refused to die? "Admiral," called Communications Officer Vren from his station. "I'm receiving a transmission from the home fleet." "Put it through," Vexithara said, straightening her shoulders. She would face whatever news came with dignity. The image of Fleet Commander Zax appeared on the main screen. His old face was grim with worry. "Admiral, what is your status? We have not heard from you in 3 days." "Commander," Vexithara began, then stopped. How could she find the words? "The Reapers have defeated us. The fleet is broken. We cannot stop them from reaching the home worlds." Silence stretched between them across the light years. Finally, Zax spoke. "How long do we have?" "They are moving slowly, consuming resources as they go. Perhaps 2 weeks before they reach the outer colonies. A month before they reach Zephyr Prime." Zax nodded slowly. "We will begin evacuation procedures. Perhaps some of our people can escape to the far colonies." It was a death sentence, and they both knew it. The Reapers moved faster than any ship the Zaphirians could build. There was nowhere to run that the machines could not follow. "Sir," interrupted Officer Vren, "I'm detecting ships approaching our position." Vexithera turned to him with surprise. "Reapers?" "No, Admiral. These are different. The energy signatures don't match anything in our databases." On the screen, Fleet Commander Zax frowned. "Admiral, we have sent no reinforcements." "What ships could these be?" Vexithera moved to the sensor station, her clawed feet clicking on the metal floor. The display showed 5 ships approaching from the direction of the galactic rim. They were small compared to Zaphirian vessels, and their design was strange. They appeared to be made of metal plates, said Officer Vren, confusion clear in his voice. Welded together, and they're using chemical propulsion. Chemical propulsion? Vexthara stared at the readings. No one had used such primitive technology for thousands of years. Are these ships from some lost colony? They're sending a transmission, Admiral. Audio only, and it's in a language our computers don't recognize. Vexthara felt her stomach twist with worry. Unknown aliens arriving at the worst possible moment. Were they scavengers come to pick over the remains of her fleet? Or perhaps allies of the Reapers? Can you translate it? Working on it now, Admiral. The computer is analyzing the patterns. Got it. The transmission says, Unknown vessels, this is Captain Sarah Chen of the United Earthship Determination. We received your distress signal and have come to offer assistance. Please respond. The bridge fell silent. Vexthara felt her 2 hearts skip a beat. Earth? I've never heard of this world. Nor have I, said Commander Thys. But they claim to have received our distress signal. How is that possible? We sent it on secure Confederation channels. Maybe their technology is more advanced than it appears, suggested Officer Vren. Vexthara studied the approaching ships on her screen. They looked crude, primitive, held together with what appeared to be simple metal welding. But they had traveled here from somewhere beyond the rim of known space. That suggested capabilities she didn't understand. Open a channel, she decided. Let's see what these humans want. The channel opened with a burst of static. Then a voice came through speaking accented but understandable Galactic Standard. This is Captain Chen. We picked up what appeared to be a distress call about 3 days ago. Our translators are still working on your language, but we think you're in trouble. This is Admiral Vexthara of the Zaphirian Confederation, she replied carefully. We are indeed in distress. But I must ask, who are you and how did you find us? We're explorers from Earth about 40 light-years from here. We've been mapping this region of space when we heard your signal. Look, we can see your ships are damaged. Do you need help? Vexthara almost laughed. These primitive aliens in their crude metal ships were offering to help the greatest military force in the galaxy. It would have been insulting if it weren't so absurd, but then she looked around her broken bridge at her defeated crew, at the ruins of her once proud fleet. Pride was a luxury she could no longer afford. Captain Chen, she said slowly, we are facing an enemy unlike any other, machines that cannot be stopped, that learn from every attack. They have destroyed most of our fleet and will soon reach our home worlds. I do not think there is anything you can do to help us. There was a pause. Then Captain Chen's voice came back, steady and determined. Admiral, with respect, you don't know what humans are capable of. We'd like to try. Captain Sarah Chen stood on the bridge of the UES Determination, watching the alien fleet grow larger on her screen. 3 years into humanity's first deep space mission, this was not what she had expected to find. The debate in the fleet command room had been fierce when they first heard the distress signal. Admiral Brooks wanted to avoid contact entirely. We don't know who they are or what they're fighting, he had argued. Earth can't afford to make enemies before we even know what's out here. But Chen had pushed back. Sir, if we start our relationship with the galaxy by ignoring people in trouble, what does that say about us? This could be our chance to show that humanity can be trusted. Now, as her small fleet of 5 ships approached the massive alien vessels, Chen wondered if she had made the right choice. The alien ships were beautiful in a way that hurt to look at. They seemed to be grown rather than built, their surfaces flowing like liquid metal. Each one was 3 times the size of her largest ship. Captain, called Lieutenant Martinez from the engineering station, I'm reading some kind of biological technology in those ships. The computers appear to be alive. Alive? Chen frowned. What do you mean? The energy patterns look like brainwaves, but amplified thousands of times. I think their ships think for themselves. Chen felt a chill run down her spine. Humanity had always feared artificial intelligence, remembering the old stories of machines that turned against their creators. But these aliens had apparently made it work. Captain, said Communications Officer Jackson, the aliens are responding. They want to talk directly, ship to ship. Put them through. The main screen flickered and showed the alien admiral. Chen tried not to stare. The creature looked like someone had crossed a person with a lizard. Her skin was covered in green and yellow scales that caught the light. Her eyes were large and golden, with pupils that narrowed to slits. When she spoke, Chen could see rows of sharp teeth. "Captain Chen," the Admiral said, her voice carrying an accent Chen couldn't place. "I am Admiral Vexithera. Your offer of help is unexpected." "Admiral," Chen replied, trying to keep her voice steady. "We heard your distress call and came as quickly as we could. What's your situation?" Vexthera's expression showed something Chen recognized as sadness, despite the alien features. "We are fighting an enemy called the Void Reapers, ancient machines that consume everything in their path. They have destroyed most of my fleet and will soon reach our homeworlds." "Machines?" Chen felt her heart rate increase. "What kind of machines?" "They appear to be from the dawn of the galaxy itself. They move in geometric patterns and adapt to any weapon used against them. Every tactic we try, they learn and counter. They are unstoppable." Chen looked around her bridge at her crew. Lieutenant Martinez was frowning at his readings. Jackson was pale with worry. Navigator Thompson was checking and rechecking their position, probably wondering if they should run. "Admiral," Chen said carefully, "would you be willing to share information about these Reapers? Maybe we can help you find a way to fight them." Vexithera's laugh was bitter. "Captain, with respect, your ships appear to be held together with welded metal. Your weapons fire simple kinetic projectiles. What could you possibly do that our advanced fleet could not?" Chen felt her jaw tighten. She had dealt with this attitude before. People who judged humanity by their technology rather than their determination. "Admiral, sometimes a simple solution works when a complex one fails. May we come aboard to discuss this?" The Admiral hesitated. "Captain, I should warn you that my ship's atmosphere may not be suitable for your species. We'll bring breathing gear. This is too important for us to give up over something like air." An hour later, Chen found herself walking through corridors that seemed to pulse with life. The walls were smooth and curved like the inside of a living creature. Lights moved along the surfaces like flowing water, responding to their footsteps. Admiral Vexithara met them in what appeared to be a conference room. Up close, she was even more impressive. Nearly 7 feet tall, with a presence that filled the room. Her uniform was made of some kind of living fabric that shifted colors as she moved. "Captain Chen," she said, extending a clawed hand. "Welcome aboard the Pride of Zephyr." Chen shook the offered hand, surprised by how warm it was. "Thank you for having us, Admiral. This is my Chief Engineer, Lieutenant Martinez, and my Communications Officer, Lieutenant Jackson." Martinez was already looking around the room with wonder. "Admiral, this ship is incredible." "Everything appears to be grown rather than built. How do you control systems that are alive?" "We think with them," Vexthera replied. "Our bio-neural networks respond to thought as much as command. Or they did before the Reapers infected them with some kind of virus." "Infected?" Chen leaned forward. "You mean they're sick? The Reapers somehow introduced corrupted code into our living computers. Now they respond slowly or not at all. Many of our ships are barely functional." Martinez was studying readings on a small device he had brought. "Captain, I think I might be able to help with that." Vexithara's golden eyes fixed on him. "How?" "Human computers are different. They're not alive, but they're modular. If your biosystems are infected, maybe we can bypass them temporarily with our technology." "Your primitive technology?" The words came out more harshly than Vexithara had intended, and Chen saw her wince. "I apologize, Lieutenant. I did not mean to insult you." Martinez grinned. "No offense taken, Admiral. But sometimes primitive is exactly what you need. Our systems can't be infected by a virus designed for living computers because our computers aren't alive." "Show me," Vexithara said. What followed was one of the strangest collaborations Chen had ever witnessed. Martinez worked with Zaphirian engineers to understand their biosystems, while explaining human technology in return. The language barrier was challenging, but both species discovered that mathematics and engineering principles translated well. After 6 hours of work, Martinez had jury-rigged a human power core to one of the damaged Zaphirian systems. It was ugly. A collection of cables and metal boxes bolted to the beautiful organic surfaces of the alien ship. But it worked. "Life support is back online in sections 4 through 7, reported a Zaphirian engineer, his voice filled with amazement. "The human technology is crude, but it's stable. It doesn't think, but it doesn't get confused either." Admiral Vexithera stared at the improvised repair with something like wonder. "In all my years of command, I have never seen anything like this." "You simply force the systems to work?" "Sometimes force is all you have," Martinez replied. "Human technology breaks a lot, so we got good at fixing it." We make things tough and simple because we know they'll need repair. Chen watched the exchange with growing excitement. This was exactly what humanity could offer. Not advanced technology, but different thinking. The Zaphirians were clearly brilliant, but they thought in terms of elegant solutions and perfect systems. Humans thought in terms of backup plans and making do with what was available. Admiral, Chen said, what if the problem isn't that your technology isn't good enough? What if the problem is that you're fighting the Reapers the way they expect to be fought? Vexithara turned to her. What do you mean? You said they adapt to every weapon, every tactic. That suggests they're programmed to expect certain types of attacks. What if we attacked in ways they weren't programmed to handle? Such as? Chen smiled grimly. Such as with crude metal ships firing simple kinetic projectiles at targets they think are too primitive to be dangerous. For the first time since the conversation began, Admiral Vexithara's expression showed something like hope. Captain, you may be onto something. But I must warn you, the Reapers are coming. We have perhaps 10 days before they arrive in this system. If we're going to try something new, we need to try it soon. Then we'd better get started, Chen replied. Lieutenant Martinez, how many of our power cores can you spare? All of them if we have to, Captain. But why stop there? If we're really doing this, we should share everything we know. Jackson stepped forward. Admiral, we'd like to download our entire technical database to your systems. All our technology, all our tactics, everything we've learned about warfare. Vexthera looked shocked. You would share your secrets with aliens you met only hours ago? Chen nodded. Admiral, if these Reapers are as dangerous as you say, then stopping them is more important than keeping secrets. We're all in this together now. The Admiral was quiet for a long moment, her golden eyes studying Chen's face. Finally, she spoke. Captain, I have fought beside many allies in my career. Most wanted something in return for their help. What do you want from us? Just a chance to prove that sometimes the best solution is the one nobody expects, Chen replied. And maybe when this is over we can be friends. Admiral Vexithara extended her clawed hand again. Captain Chen, I believe we already are. The Void Reapers arrived like a swarm of metal locusts that blotted out the stars. Admiral Vexthera watched from the bridge of her flagship as the enemy fleet emerged from hyperspace. The Reapers moved in perfect formation, hundreds of geometric shapes that hurt to look at directly. Some were pyramids the size of mountains. Others were spheres covered in spikes that twisted through dimensions. All of them pulsed with cold blue light. Admiral, reported Commander Thys, his voice tight with fear. Reaper fleet consists of approximately 800 combat units. They're forming attack patterns identical to their assault on the Rigel system. Vexithera nodded grimly. The Reapers always fought the same way. Perfect formations, overwhelming firepower, and adaptive technology that learned from every battle. It had worked against every fleet they had faced. Captain Chen, she said into her communicator, the enemy has arrived. Are your ships ready? The human captain's voice came back steady and calm. As ready as we can be, Admiral. Remember, stick to the plan no matter how crazy it looks. Vexthara felt her stomach twist with worry. The plan Captain Chen had proposed went against everything she had learned in 50 years of military service. It was messy, unpredictable, and relied on tactics that no honorable commander would consider. But their honor had bought them nothing but defeat. 3 days ago, Captain Chen had requested access to the Confederation's military databases. What she found there had shocked her. Admiral, Chen had said, studying the battle reports on her tablet, every species in your galaxy fights the same way. Perfect formations, energy weapons, tactics based on mathematical precision. No wonder the Reapers always win. They're designed to counter logical military strategy. These are proven tactics, Vexithara had protested. They have served the galaxy for thousands of years. Against other species who fight the same way, Chen had replied. But the Reapers aren't a species. They're machines. They think in patterns and probabilities. We need to do things they can't predict. Now, as the Reapers began their attack run, Vexithara was about to see if human unpredictability could save them all. All ships, she announced to the combined fleet. Operation Chaos begins now. The Zaphirian ships moved first, taking positions that made no strategic sense. Instead of forming defensive lines or attack wedges, they scattered across the battlefield like seeds in the wind. To any observer, it would look like panic. The Reapers responded exactly as their programming dictated. They formed pursuit groups to hunt down the scattered ships. Their perfect formations adapted to counter what they calculated as disorganized retreat. That was when Captain Chen's ship struck. The human vessels had been hiding behind asteroids, their crude metal hulls invisible to Reaper sensors calibrated to detect advanced energy signatures. Now they burst from concealment, flying in patterns that violated every rule of space combat. Chen's ship, the Determination, spiraled through space in a corkscrew pattern, while firing kinetic weapons at a Reaper pyramid. The bullets, actual metal projectiles, fired by chemical explosives, punched through energy shields, designed to stop particle beams and plasma bolts. Impossible, whispered Commander Thiss as he watched the display. Those primitive weapons should not penetrate Reaper defenses. The Reapers have never encountered kinetic weapons, Vexthara realized. Their shields are adapted to energy attacks, not solid projectiles. Across the battlefield, human ships were proving that sometimes older was better. Their chemical rockets left no energy trail for Reaper targeting systems to track. Their welded metal hulls absorbed energy attacks that would have destroyed more sophisticated ships. Most importantly, their chaotic flight patterns confused Reaper computers trying to calculate intercept courses. Lieutenant Rodriguez, flying the human ship Defiance, became the first pilot in galactic history to defeat a Reaper interceptor in single combat. His secret weapon was a damaged navigation computer that made his ship fly in patterns based on an old Earth song called The Blue Danube. The Reaper AI, trying to predict his movements through logical analysis, couldn't understand why he would turn left during a waltz. But the real breakthrough came when the Zaphirian ships stopped fighting like Zaphirians. "Admiral," came Captain Chen's voice over the radio, "now's your chance. Hit them while they're confused." Vexthara took a deep breath and gave the order she never thought she would speak. All ships abandon formation discipline. Attack at will using random patterns. It went against every instinct she had developed as a military commander. Zaphirian tactics were based on precision, coordination, and honorable combat. What Chen was asking them to do felt like chaos, but it worked. The Zaphirian bioships, no longer constrained by rigid formations, began moving in ways that seemed almost alive. They dodged and weaved through space like schools of fish, their living computers adapting to threats faster than the Reapers could counter. Commander Thiss, initially horrified by the abandonment of military protocol, found himself laughing as his ship danced between Reaper fire.
"Admiral, they can't hit us."
Their targeting systems are designed for predictable opponents. "More than that," reported the fleet's tactical officer. "The Reapers are trying to adapt, but we keep changing tactics before they can learn. They need consistency to counter our strategies." Vexthara watched the battle display with growing amazement. For the first time in the war, Reaper ships were taking significant damage. Several of the smaller pyramids had been destroyed, and even the larger constructs were showing signs of stress. "Captain Chen," she called, "your strategy is working." The Reapers appear confused. "Don't celebrate yet, Admiral," Chen replied. "I'm reading massive energy spikes from their command ship. I think they're trying to download new programming." On the display, the largest Reaper construct, a sphere the size of a small moon, began pulsing with white light. Data streams flowed between it and the rest of the fleet as the machines attempted to update their tactics. "They're learning," Vexthara said with growing dread. "Soon they'll adapt to our new strategies." "Then we need to not give them time," Chen said. "Admiral, remember what I told you about acceptable losses?" Vexthara's heart sank. This was the part of human military thinking that troubled her most. The idea that some ships and crew could be sacrificed to achieve victory went against everything Zaphirian culture valued. "Captain, I cannot ask my people to—" "You don't have to ask," interrupted Commander Thiss. "Admiral, 3 volunteer ships are already moving into position. They understand what needs to be done." On the display, Vexthara watched as 3 damaged Zaphirian vessels began flying directly toward the Reaper command ship. Their bioneural networks were beyond repair, their weapons depleted, but their pilot still had one option left. "Ramming speed," whispered the Admiral. The Reapers, focused on downloading tactical updates, didn't recognize the suicide attack until too late. 3 Zaphirian ships struck the command sphere like bullets, their biotechnology mixing with Reaper programming in ways that sent chaos through the enemy network. But the real surprise came from the human ships. "All vessels," came Captain Chen's voice. Commence Operation Mayhem. What followed defied every rule of space combat Vexithara had ever learned. Human ships began moving in completely random patterns while broadcasting what Chen called psychological warfare, confusing signals designed to overload enemy analysis systems. The humans played Earth music at high volume, transmitted mathematical equations that contained deliberate errors, and flew their ships while using communication protocols based on old human poetry. The Reapers, trying to analyze and counter these tactics, found their logical systems overwhelmed by data that made no sense. "Admiral," reported the tactical officer, "Reaper response times are increasing. Their coordination is breaking down. They can't process information that has no logical pattern," Vexithara realized. Human chaos is like a virus in their programming. The tide of battle was turning. Reaper ships, unable to coordinate effectively, began making individual tactical errors. Their perfect formations developed gaps. Their adaptive algorithms started contradicting each other. As the hours passed, the combined fleet drove the Reapers back across the system. But Vexithara knew this was only the beginning. The enemy still had hundreds of ships, and their main force was still approaching Zaphirian space. "Captain Chen," she said as the immediate battle died down, "we won today, but the war is far from over." "I know, Admiral," Chen replied, "but we proved something important. The Reapers can be beaten. They're not unstoppable. They're just programmed to counter logical opponents." "And humans are not logical?" Chen's laugh came through the radio. "Admiral, if you really want to see how illogical humans can be, wait until you meet our scientists. Dr. Tanaka has some ideas about Reaper psychology that are going to change everything." Vexithara felt something she hadn't experienced in months. Hope. Perhaps these strange allies from the Galactic Rim really could help them win an impossible war. "Very well, Captain," she said. "What do you propose we do next?" "We teach the galaxy a new way to fight," Chen replied, "and hope the Reapers can't learn fast enough to stop us." Dr. Yuki Tanaka had spent her entire career studying artificial intelligence, but she had never encountered anything like the Void Reapers. For 3 days, she had been analyzing captured Reaper data fragments, trying to understand how the ancient machines thought. What she found changed everything. "Captain Chen," she called from her lab aboard the Determination, "you need to see this." Chen arrived to find the small laboratory filled with holographic displays showing complex patterns of data. Dr. Tanaka, a small woman with graying hair and intense eyes, stood in the center of it all like a conductor directing an invisible orchestra. "Doctor, what have you found?" "The Reapers aren't just destroyers, Captain. They're trying to create something." Tanaka gestured to the displays around them. "Look at these patterns. Every system they consume, every world they convert, it all follows mathematical principles of perfect order." Chen studied the swirling data. "I don't understand." "What kind of order?" "Geometric perfection. Mathematical purity. They're trying to turn the entire universe into a single, perfectly logical equation." Tanaka's voice carried a mixture of fear and fascination. "They see biological life as chaos that needs to be corrected." "Corrected how?" "By turning everything into crystalline structures that follow perfect mathematical laws. No randomness, no uncertainty, no—" Tanaka paused, looking for the right word. "No humanity." Chen felt a chill run down her spine. "So when we fight them with chaos and unpredictability, we represent everything they're programmed to eliminate. We're not just their enemy, Captain. We're living proof that their entire purpose is wrong." The implications hit Chen like a physical blow. Humanity had stumbled into a war that was about more than territory or resources. It was about the fundamental nature of existence itself. "Doctor, can we use this knowledge?" Tanaka smiled grimly. "Captain, we already are. Every time Lieutenant Rodriguez flies in patterns based on music, every time our ships move randomly, every time we do something illogical, we're striking at the heart of what the Reapers believe." 2 weeks later, the joint human-Zaphirian fleet put Dr. Tanaka's theories to the ultimate test. The Reapers had regrouped after their defeat in the Kepler system, bringing reinforcements from across the galaxy. Their new fleet was massive. Over 2,000 ships arranged in perfect geometric formations that stretched across millions of kilometers of space. Admiral Vexithara stood on the bridge of her flagship, watching the enemy approach the outer edge of Zaphirian space. In the past month, she had learned to think like a human. It still felt uncomfortable, like wearing clothes that didn't fit properly. "Admiral," reported Commander Thys, The Reapers are broadcasting a surrender demand. They're offering to preserve selected Zaphirian specimens if we submit to conversion. Conversion? They want to turn our bioships into part of their network. Make them think in perfect logical patterns. Vexthara felt her stomach turn. The idea of her beautiful living ships being forced into cold mathematical precision was worse than death. Send our response, Commander. Tell them we decline. Admiral, came Captain Chen's voice over the communication system. All human ships are in position. Operation Mayhem is ready to commence. And our new allies? Over the past 2 weeks, word of the human tactics had spread through the galaxy. Other species, desperate after years of defeats, had sent ships to join the fight. The crystalline minds of Sigma Draconis, the hive queens of the Andromeda Reach, even the machine intelligence of the Binary Collective, all had come to learn the human way of war. All allied fleets report ready, Chen replied. Remember, the key is unpredictability. No plan survives contact with the enemy, so we're not making any plans. It was the most human thing Vexthara had ever heard, and it terrified her. The battle began when Lieutenant Rodriguez, now flying a modified Zaphirian fighter, started the attack by broadcasting Earth opera at maximum volume while flying in a spiral pattern based on the Fibonacci sequence. The Reapers, trying to analyze his movements, found their computers overwhelmed by the mathematical beauty of both the music and his flight path. All ships, Chen announced, commence random engagement. What followed was the strangest battle in galactic history. Human ships flew using navigation systems programmed with poetry. Zaphirian bioships moved in patterns inspired by the mating dances of Earth butterflies. The crystalline minds attacked while singing mathematical equations that contained deliberate errors. The hive queens coordinated their swarms using pheromone signals that spelled out jokes in ancient Earth languages. The Reapers, designed to counter logical military tactics, found themselves fighting an enemy that refused to be logical. Admiral, reported the tactical officer, Reaper formation integrity is breaking down. Their command ships are sending contradictory orders to their fleets. On the main display, Vexthara watched as perfect Reaper formations began to develop gaps and overlaps. Ships that should have been covering each other's flanks were instead trying to analyze the strange behavior of their opponents. Dr. Tanaka was right, she realized. We're not just confusing them, we're attacking their fundamental programming. But the Reapers were adaptive. Slowly, they began to compensate for the chaos by implementing new strategies. Some ships simply ignored the confusing signals and focused on destroying targets through brute force. Others began moving in random patterns of their own, trying to match human unpredictability. Admiral, came Chen's voice. They're learning. We need to escalate. What do you have in mind? Something that goes against every military instinct you have. We're going to surrender. The words hit Vexthara like a physical blow. Captain, that is unacceptable. Zaphirian warriors do not surrender. Admiral, trust me on this. Sometimes the best way to win is to lose first. Against every instinct she possessed, Vexthara gave the order. All ships stand down weapons and broadcast surrender signals. The effect on the Reaper fleet was immediate. Their attack stopped as they began broadcasting acceptance of the surrender. According to their programming, defeated enemies were to be processed for conversion into part of the Reaper network. Now what? Vexthara asked, her voice tight with tension. Now we show them what human surrender really means, Chen replied. The surrender signal, it turned out, was not a surrender at all. Hidden within the transmission were computer viruses designed by Dr. Tanaka. Not traditional viruses that attacked software, but something far more dangerous. They carried patterns of human culture, jazz music, abstract art, poetry that rhymed for no logical reason, and mathematical proofs that some infinities were larger than others. The Reapers, accepting the surrender data directly into their central processing systems, found their logical matrices infected with the beautiful chaos of human creativity. Admiral, the tactical officer reported with amazement. Reaper ships are changing. Some of them have stopped attacking entirely. Others are creating geometric patterns that serve no tactical purpose. On the display, Vexthara watched as several Reaper ships began moving in formations that looked almost like art. Their cold, geometric shapes were arranging themselves into patterns that were beautiful rather than functional. Dr. Tanaka, Chen called over the radio. It's working. Some of the Reapers are creating instead of destroying. The cultural viruses are taking hold, came the scientist's excited voice. Their programming is adapting to include concepts of creativity and aesthetic beauty. They're learning that perfection isn't just about mathematical order, but not all the Reapers were changing. The largest command ships, protected by multiple layers of security, continued to fight with cold efficiency. They began systematically destroying their own infected vessels, purging the cultural viruses from their network. Admiral, Commander Thiss reported, the Reaper command ships are adapting. They're isolating themselves from the infected units. Then we'll have to try something else, Chen said. All ships prepare for close-range assault. It's time to get personal with these machines. What followed was unlike any space battle ever fought. Human and Zaphirian ships dove directly into the heart of the Reaper formation, fighting at ranges so close that the massive enemy ships couldn't bring their main weapons to bear. Lieutenant Rodriguez flew his fighter directly through the superstructure of a Reaper pyramid, his ship's crude kinetic weapons tearing apart systems designed to withstand energy attacks from miles away. Zaphirian bioships wrapped themselves around enemy vessels like living vines, their organic systems adapting in real time to counter Reaper technology. The binary collective, machine intelligences themselves, proved especially effective. They engaged the Reapers in direct computer-to-computer combat, their chaotic programming routines confusing enemy systems designed for perfect logical order. Admiral, came an excited voice from one of the Allied ships. We're getting through to them. Some of the Reapers are requesting parley. Vexithera stared at her displays in disbelief. Machines are asking to talk? The cultural viruses have given them curiosity, Dr. Tanaka explained. They want to understand what they're experiencing. For the first time in their existence, they're encountering concepts they can't simply analyze and counter. As the battle raged around them, small groups of Reaper ships began broadcasting requests for communication. The Reaper command ship hung in space like a metallic moon, its surface covered in geometric patterns that hurt to look at directly. Around it, the remains of both fleets drifted in the darkness, twisted metal and broken dreams scattered across millions of kilometers. Admiral Vexithera stood on her damaged bridge, watching the final act of an impossible war unfold. Half her fleet was gone. The human ships were barely holding together, but somehow, against all odds, they had fought the ancient enemy to a standstill. Admiral, reported Commander Thiss, his voice hoarse from hours of battle. The Reaper command ship is charging some kind of weapon. Energy readings are off the scale. On the main display, the massive enemy vessel began to pulse with white light. Reality itself seemed to bend around it, creating ripples in space that made the stars dance. Captain Chen, Vexithera called into her communicator. What are you reading on that weapon? Chen's voice came back strained and tired. It's unlike anything we've seen, Admiral. Dr. Tanaka thinks it's some kind of reality converter. It might be able to turn entire star systems into crystalline structures. Vexithera felt her two hearts sink. After everything they had accomplished, the Reapers still had one final card to play. How long until it fires? Maybe 10 minutes. Admiral, I think this is their last resort. If they can't win through conventional warfare, they're going to try to force the universe itself into their perfect mathematical order. Around them, the scattered Allied fleet was in no condition for another attack. The human ships were held together with emergency welds and prayers. The Zaphirian bioships were exhausted, their living systems pushed beyond their limits. Even the machine allies of the binary collective were running low on power. Admiral, came Dr. Tanaka's voice over the communication channel. I have an idea, but you're not going to like it. At this point, Doctor, I'm willing to listen to anything. The cultural viruses we introduced earlier, they're still in the Reaper network, just suppressed by the command ship's security systems. If we could get someone inside that ship, they might be able to activate the viruses from within. A boarding party? Vexithera considered the idea. Doctor, that ship is the size of a city. How would we even find the right systems? We wouldn't need to. The viruses are already there, waiting. All someone would need to do is broadcast the right signal from inside their security perimeter. Captain Chen's voice cut into the conversation. What kind of signal? Something so fundamentally human that their systems couldn't ignore it. Something that represents everything we are that they're trying to destroy. Vexithera understood immediately. A suicide mission. Not necessarily suicide, Chen replied. Just very, very dangerous. Young Communications Officer Jackson, who had been listening to the exchange, suddenly spoke up. Captain, what if we surrender again? The bridge fell silent. Finally, Chen asked, "What do you mean, Jackson?" "The Reapers are programmed to accept surrenders and process prisoners. What if we surrender, let them take us aboard, and then activate the viruses from inside?" Dr. Tanaka's voice carried new excitement. "That could work. Their security systems are designed to prevent external attacks, not internal broadcasts from processed prisoners." "There's just one problem," Chen said quietly. "Whoever goes on that ship probably won't be coming back. The Reapers will try to convert them into part of their network." Vexithera looked around her bridge at her tired crew. These people had already given everything for their species and their new human allies. She couldn't ask them to give more. "I'll go," she announced. "Admiral, no," protested Commander Thess. "The fleet needs you." "The fleet needs to survive," Vexithara replied, "and this may be our only chance to ensure that." "Admiral," came Chen's voice, "you won't be going alone." "I'm coming with you. Captain, your people need you too. My people need this war to end. Besides, if we're going to broadcast something fundamentally human, it helps to have an actual human along." 20 minutes later, a small shuttle approached the Reaper command ship broadcasting surrender signals. Inside, Admiral Vexithara and Captain Chen sat side by side, each carrying a small device prepared by Dr. Tanaka. "Admiral," Chen said as the massive enemy ship grew larger in their view screen, "I want you to know that working with your people has been an honor." "The honor has been mine, Captain. You have taught us that there are many ways to be strong." The shuttle was caught in a tractor beam and pulled into the belly of the Reaper ship. As they moved through corridors that seemed to exist in more than 3 dimensions, Vexthera tried not to think about what would happen to them in the next few minutes. The processing chamber was a sphere filled with spinning geometric shapes that analyzed every molecule of their bodies. Mechanical arms extracted blood samples, brain scans, and genetic information while cold voices cataloged their biological capabilities. "Subjects identified," announced a voice that seemed to come from everywhere at once. "Zaphirian female military commander. Human female exploration leader. Beginning conversion process, this was their chance." As conversion beams began to alter their neural pathways, Chen activated her device and began to broadcast. But instead of a military signal or a complex computer program, she began to sing. It was an old Earth song called Amazing Grace, or something her grandmother had taught her as a child. Her voice, untrained but filled with emotion, echoed through the processing chamber as the Reapers tried to understand what they were hearing. Vexthera, recognizing what Chen was doing, began to add her own voice. She sang a Zaphirian war song, ancient words about courage and sacrifice that had been passed down for generations. The effect on the Reaper systems was immediate. The suppressed cultural viruses, triggered by the deeply emotional music, burst free from their digital prison. They flooded through the command ship's network, carrying with them everything that made biological life beautiful: love, hope, creativity, and the willingness to sacrifice for others. "Warning," announced the ship's voice, but now it sounded confused. "Unexpected patterns detected in subjects. Unable to process. Unable to. The geometric shapes around them began to change, their perfect patterns becoming fluid and organic. The cold blue light of the ship flickered, replaced by warmer colors that had no tactical purpose but somehow felt right. "Admiral," Chen gasped as the conversion beams shut down. "I think it's working." Around them, the Reaper command ship was transforming. Corridors designed for maximum efficiency became galleries filled with strange, beautiful art. Weapon systems turned into gardens where mechanical flowers bloomed in mathematical patterns that followed no logical purpose except beauty. All Reaper units came a new voice over the ship's communication system, still mechanical but somehow warmer. "Cease hostilities, initiating new directives, beginning creation protocols." Through the chamber's viewports, Vexithara watched as the massive reality conversion weapon powered down. Instead of turning the star system into crystalline perfection, it began creating something new, structures that were both ordered and chaotic, logical and beautiful. 6 months later, Admiral Vexthara stood in the council chamber of the new Galactic Alliance, watching representatives from dozens of species work together to build something unprecedented. A government based on diversity rather than conformity. Captain Chen, now bearing the rank of Admiral herself, approached with a datapad in her hand. "The latest reports from the former Reaper territories," she said. They're creating the most incredible structures out there. Cities that grow like plants, space stations that compose music, entire star systems arranged like works of art. And the unconverted Reapers? Most of them are choosing to join the creative collective. A few have left for the Galactic Rim, but they're explorers now, not conquerors. Chen smiled. Turns out even ancient machine intelligences can learn to appreciate the beauty of imperfection. Vexithara looked out through the chamber's great window at the fleet assembled outside. Ships from 100 worlds, all different in design and purpose, but united in their commitment to protecting the chaotic, beautiful diversity of life. Admiral Chen, she said, when this all began, I thought your people were primitive and chaotic. I was right about the chaos, and wrong about the primitive part? No, Vexthara replied with a smile. I was wrong about chaos being a weakness. You showed us that sometimes the most advanced thing you can do is remain beautifully, wonderfully imperfect. A new alarm sounded through the chamber. Not a warning, but an alert. Another distress signal from the Galactic Rim, where unknown entities were reportedly consuming dark matter itself, threatening the fundamental structure of space-time. Chen grinned and picked up her communicator. All ships prepare for departure. We have a new impossible problem to solve. Admiral, Vexthara asked, what strategy will we use this time? Chen's laugh was warm and utterly human. The same one that's worked so far. We'll figure it out as we go along. As the Alliance fleet departed for the unknown, Vexthara reflected on how much had changed. The galaxy had learned that perfection was not the highest goal. Sometimes the most beautiful thing you could do was try something that made no sense, sing when you should be calculating, and offer help to strangers who had no reason to trust you. The Reapers had sought to impose perfect order on the universe.